Anthony Richardson has created a civil war amongst Colts fans because you got one half of this fan base who believe that the only way Anthony Richardson is going to get better is by continuing to get meaningful in-game experience. And even if he struggles, the Colts can't bench him because he's only going to get better with more playing time. But you got the second half of this fan base that believe that Anthony Richardson isn't good enough to remain the starter for this team, and he should develop on the bench and behind the scenes in practice. And Joe Flacco should be the starter for the remainder of this season because he's the best quarterback and gives this team the best chance to win. Now, when I have watched Anthony Richardson play this year, I've seen a quarterback that looks like a juiced up version of Tim Tebow than he does looking like a second coming of Lamar Jackson. Because when the Colts drafted Anthony Richardson 3rd overall in 2023, the hope was that Shane Steichen, who is one of the more well-respected offensive minds in the league, could develop Anthony Richardson and turn him into what Lamar Jackson is right now. But he looks more closer to being the next Tim Tebow than he does looking like the next Lamar Jackson. Because when you look at Tim Tebow's 2011 season, when he led the Denver Broncos to the playoffs, they got that upset win over the Steelers. He had Demaryius Thomas for the first play of overtime for a touchdown to win it. He went 7-4 that year as a starter. He completed 46.5% of his passes, had a TD-INT ratio of 12-6, and with Anthony Richardson so far throughout this season, he hasn't been anything better than what Tebow was when he was the starter for the Broncos in 2011. He has a 3-6 touchdown interception ratio, and like Tebow, he's completing around 40% of his passes at 48.5%. So if anything, Anthony Richardson is more closer right now to becoming the second coming of Tim Tebow than he is looking like the second version of Lamar Jackson. There are a lot of overlapping similarities between Tim Tebow and Anthony Richardson because both of these guys coming out of college, they were viewed as project players. They were guys that had bad footwork, inconsistent accuracy. They didn't really look like a natural quarterback. And for Anthony Richardson to become the next Lamar Jackson, you're banking on Shane Steichen being able to completely elevate this dude as a passer. And I don't think that's ever going to happen. And I'm not an Anthony Richardson hater. I like to call myself a truther. Because if Anthony Richardson reaches his full potential, the best he's going to be is a more athletic version of Cam Newton, which would be a really good player. But what we tend to forget about Cam Newton is that he was never a consistent passer. He was never a truly accurate thrower of the football. He only completed 60% of his passes 2 times throughout his entire NFL career. And Anthony Richardson, even if he is able to reach his potential, he's not going to be as good as what Lamar Jackson is throwing the football. He probably is going to be a guy who probably is going to always complete around 60% of his passes or lower. Anthony Richardson just isn't that kind of quarterback that's going to be able to destroy you from the pocket like Lamar can. And right now, Anthony Richardson looks more closer to being the next Tim Tebow than he does looking like the next Lamar Jackson. Tim Tebow, he struggled to throw the football with accuracy. There were several games when this dude only completed like 5-6 passes. And with Tim Tebow in 2011 only completing 46.5% of his passes, and right now so far this season, Anthony Richardson is only completing 48.5% of his passes, this dude looks like he's going to be a more juiced up version of what Tim Tebow is. And I'm hoping that I'm wrong because I really do believe that Anthony Richardson has everything that it takes to be a great quarterback in the NFL. He's a great leader. He's the first one in the building, last guy out, high character guy. Everybody seems to love him. And everybody understood that Anthony Richardson was going to be a project. He wasn't going to be one of those dudes that you sit for a year or you start for a year, then year 2 he was going to take a massive leap. It was always going to be a 2-year or more developmental project for Shane Steichen and that Colts coaching staff when it comes to the development of helping Anthony Richardson mature into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And right now, early into this thing, it looks really ugly, but the Colts are still finding ways to win despite Anthony Richardson not having consistent performances, because Anthony Richardson has shown flashes of what he could be when he puts it all together. It's not like you're in the same situation that the Panthers are right now with Bryce Young, where you got a guy that hasn't shown you any flashes. Anthony Richardson has had at least 2 or 3 games where he has played some good football. Week 1 against the Texans, he looked really good in that game, and he had a few good performances last year before he got injured. But the problem with the Colts is that you got a player that, despite his great physique, 6'5", 255 pounds, running 4.43, you can't really maximize all of his physical gifts due to his durability concerns. Despite how big he is, you know what they say, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. That tends to be true when it comes to Anthony Richardson, because this dude steady gets injured by smaller players. And that has hindered his development because it has taken away meaningful game action that he has needed to help continue to grow and help his development. And right now, I think that the Colts are in dangerous territory when it comes to Anthony Richardson, because he looks really close to being Tim Tebow, but just way more athletic.